What's up everybody, it's Luke here from Lifehouse, and just want to give Lifehouse College another shout out. If you haven't registered yet, this month you can still register for college, so get on that. The link is below. Join us. We've got like 300 students in college now. Big community online, lots of people, lots of single people. So jump on there, you could find the love of your life and also learn a whole bunch of amazing studies. So it's going to be incredible. Tonight we are going to look at a finance series. We're going to be talking about financial freedom, and this series is seriously one of the things that could really have a big impact on your life. We're going to learn about what God says about finance. So get ready to take some notes. Seriously, tune into this because it's going to be incredible, life-changing. So here we go right now. Let's talk about financial freedom.
Well, hey everybody, and welcome to 7 Steps to Financial Freedom. My name's Josh. I'm one of the pastors here at Lifehouse, and I tell you what, we're just so excited about helping you get better in your finances and getting to a place of incredible generosity and financial freedom. And so glad that you've started this course together with us. Now we're going to spend the next 8 sessions together, and I believe these sessions are some of the things that you're going to look back on in your life as a pivotal moment in your finances, in the way that you think about money, and in fact, in the way that you live your life. And so we're going to kick things off today with an introduction to 7 steps to financial freedom. You know, Dave Ramsey says, live like no one else now so that later you can live and give like no one else. And I want to tell you now that we want to live a blessed life. But you know, mate, you may not realize it, but if you are listening to my voice right now or watching this video, you are in fact blessed. Just by living here in Japan, where we're recording this, the average salary in Japan at just over 3 million yen puts us in the top 1% of wealthiest people in the world. That's about $30,000. So wherever you're watching this, if your salary is above $30,000 a year, that actually puts you in the top 1% of wealthiest people in the world as well. And you may say, but I don't feel that blessed. Well, actually you are. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 2, it says, it is required that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful. And what do you think that means when we've been given a trust? Well, it means that God has blessed us with something and he expects us to do well with what we have. In fact, many times throughout the Bible, and even Jesus says this, that as we do well with what God has given us, God will give us more to steward for him. You see, what we have is not just, limited to what we have, but as we do well with what we have, God sees that. His blessing is upon it. He smiles upon us. And of course, he wants to bless those who are going to do well with what he gave them. Matthew 25:23, Jesus tells a story, and his master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. And right from the start, right from the outset of financial freedom, I want to ask you a question. Are you being faithful with what God has given you? Are you being faithful with what God has given you? And honestly, if you looked at your life, you'd probably say, maybe I could do a little better with what God has given me. Financial freedom. Financial freedom is being free from anything that might be holding us back from living the blessed life that God has for us. For many people, this means freedom from debt, freedom from stress about worry, or freedom from bad decisions, or even a family history of bad decisions. And this course is not a get-rich-quick scheme. In fact, it may be a get-rich over time or build wealth over time scheme. But you need to know that the Bible talks a lot about money. In fact, in the New Testament, Jesus offers more wisdom and has more to say about money than any other subject besides the kingdom of God. To me, this shows how important finances are to God. I believe in our lives, if we can do well in the financial area of our life, it means we can do well in many areas of our life. Luke chapter 14, verse 28, it talks about budgeting and planning. It says, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? Proverbs 21 verse 5 talks about budgeting and planning. It says, the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. Debt, the Bible talks about debt. Proverbs 22 verse 7 says, the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is slave to the lender. The Bible talks about relationships. 2 Corinthians 6:14, it says, don't be yoked together with unbelievers, for what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? It's saying, hey, you got to choose your business relationships carefully. You got to choose relationships in your life carefully. The Bible, of course, talks about saving. Proverbs 21:20 says, the wise store up choice food and oil, but fools gulp theirs down. Do you want to be wise or do you want to be fool? It's not a difficult question today. Matthew 25:19-21 talks about investing. It says, after a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5, and he said, Master, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I've gained 5 more. And his master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come, share in your master's happiness. And so the Bible talks about that. God, money is not there just to sit for us, but we need to actually not just work for money, but we need to make that money work for us. And Jesus himself is actually talking about investing that money so that we get a return on what God has originally given us. The Bible, of course, talks about giving. 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 7, it says, each of you should give what you've decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And of course, we love Proverbs chapter 3, 9 and 10, where it talks about tithing. It says, honor God with your wealth, with the first fruits, the first part of your crops, then your barns will be filled to overflowing and your vats will brim over with new wine. And tithing really is the key to getting all of this started. And God says, as we put God first in our finance, that he wants to provide for all of our needs. That's our barn, that's our food and our shelter, but also our vats will brim over with new wine. And the wine, it's talking about joy, it's talking about celebration. And I believe that links to John 10:10. Jesus says, I want to give you a full life, an exciting life, not a stingy life, but a generous life. And so you can see here, there's a framework that the Bible talks about all of these areas. And so what we've done is we've condensed this down, and that this is based off Dave Ramsey's teaching, who's an amazing teacher in America, Bible teacher, talking about finance and saving and investing. I recommend go and have a look at his YouTube or his podcast or any of his books. But the following steps, the 7 steps to financial freedom, are Bible-based common sense for your finances. And in the world today, we know that common sense sometimes is not so common. As I said, these steps are not a get rich quick scheme, but they're building God's wealth. They're building wealth God's way. And you may say, well, I don't agree with these steps, or I want to skip these steps. That's okay. You don't have the microphone today. I've got the microphone. And so these are our steps. And we've seen a lot of fruit over the years as people follow these steps and get God's planning for their finances that just brings them so much freedom, less stress, and start to live in the blessed life that God has for them. So here we go. Number 1, step 1 is get a plan for your money. And we're going to call this a budget. So we need to be budgeting each month. How long does this take? Well, you can do this in today or less than a week. Step 2, we're going to look at saving a beginner emergency fund and the different insurances and things that we need to live a safe life. And maybe this is going to take you about 1 month to get this into action. Step 3 is getting out of debt. We know that the borrower is slave to the lender. Now, this may take a while depending on how much debt you have. But it can take up to 2 years, we see in most cases. Now, this is everything except your house. Step 4 is saving a full 3 to 6 month emergency fund. And average timeline, this can be done in about 6 months. Step 5 is, this is where it gets exciting, I think, is investing for the future. And this is something we're going to do for the rest of our lives. We're going to continue to invest for the future. Step 6 is stewarding God's blessing. And this is talking about not just investing, but doing well. How do we deal with some of the bigger things in life? A house, an apartment, cars, these things. And step 7 is build wealth, be incredibly generous, and leave a legacy. And how long does this take? Well, this starts after step 6. And this is where we want to get to. We want to get to step 7, be building wealth, be incredibly generous, and leave a legacy to our children's children. So that's a bit of an overview this week, a bit of an introduction to 7 steps to financial freedom. Hey, I hope you're excited. If you're going through this with one of our amazing coaches or through a Connect group or through a course, make sure you ask any questions you may have at this time. But let's get ready to be learning these 7 steps. And I believe that they're going to help you a lot. These are some of the lessons that I wish I had learned when I was a young person. And so no matter what age, what stage you are, it's always the right time to start doing finances God's way. So God bless, and we'll see you at the next session. Have an awesome week. Well, hey there, and welcome to step 1 of 7 steps to financial freedom. My name's Josh. I'm one of the pastors here at Lifehouse, and we're just so excited about helping you win with money. Step 1, this may be the most important step, is get a plan for your money. This is the dreaded B word, budget. You need to budget each month. John Maxwell says a budget is telling your money where to go, not wondering where it went. And you may say, I don't know if I need a budget. Well, have you ever had too much month left over at the end of your money? It may take a moment to sink in. Maybe you've had a fight with your husband or wife because you didn't agree what you should spend your money on. Is that, if you be honest here, maybe there's some people out there. Or maybe you felt that you didn't have enough money to do the things that you would like. You didn't have enough money to maybe purchase that item or buy that car or build that house or be generous to those people in need. You just thought, if I just had more money. You need a budget. If you've answered any of those questions, you need a budget. Zig Ziglar, motivational speaker and author, says, if you aim at nothing, don't worry, you'll hit it every time. And all a budget is, all a plan for your money is getting some tracks for your money, telling your money where to go. Remember, if you don't tell it where to go, it's going to run away. And so let's not have a nothing budget, because we'll just go around in circles our whole life. And you may not realize it, but budgeting actually brings freedom into our life. You see, a budget doesn't decide our spending. No, we decide the budget, and then that decides where we spend. If your budget is too tight, it's because you're too tight. You set the budget. If your budget is too generous or too loose, you set the guardrails of the budget. You decide the boundaries, and you spend freely up to those boundaries. So instead of worrying about spending too much or wondering how you can buy something, you're actually free to spend up to what you've previously decided. For us, this was actually freeing when Yuki and I, my wife, when we were married and we were deciding how to spend our money and budgeting. At first, it seemed like this is going to be restricting. We just want to live a free life. But after a while, when you get a budget and you get used to the budget and you set the guardrails of the budget, it actually is freeing, because you're like, well, I can allocate this money for food and allocate this money for clothes and allocate this money for shopping or eating or giving. And then instead of feeling guilty when you go shopping, instead of thinking, I don't know if I should tell my husband or wife this. No, you are free to spend up to the budget that you've decided together with your husband and wife. Proverbs 21 verse 5 says, the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. And Proverbs is so wise. It says, as you plan out, it's actually going to lead to good things. It doesn't mean that everything is easy overnight, but over time, the plan leads to good things. Proverbs 3 verse 9 and 10 says, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of your crops, and your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. And obviously, starting our budget and the cornerstone, the very initial thing of our budget, is going to be putting God first and say, God, This whole budget this month, God, all the things that we're going to use our money on, we're going to do this to honor you first and foremost. And Jesus himself, he says in Luke 14:28, he says, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? What does Jesus say about planning our money? Well, he says, if you want to do something big, if you want to have a big project, if you want to have a big life, well, you need to sit down and you need to spend your money on paper before you start building anything. Too many people get ahead of themselves and start spending stuff and doing things, and they didn't actually sit down and work out, could it be done or how much it's going to cost? A budget meeting. This is a big one. If you take anything away from today's lesson, you need to have a budget meeting. So every month, as you get paid, have a budget meeting with your husband and wife and spend all of your money on paper. Spend all of your money on paper before you actually touch the bank. And you may say, well, I'm not married. Who do I do that? Well, if you're not married, sit down in a chair, get out your budget spreadsheet, put a teddy bear in the other chair and have a budget meeting with a teddy bear. What you need to do is give every dollar a name and you need to tell it where to go. Remember, if you don't tell it where to go, it's going to develop wings and it's going to run away. And there should be nothing left over. In fact, everything should be allocated. Remember, we're going to spend all of our money, but we're going to spend it on paper before we do anything in real life. And this is called zero-based budgeting. It means at the end of it, if you did it correctly, the end total, the end sum should be zero because you've put everything there and savings here and miscellaneous spending here and food here and tithing here. And remember, you need to stick to the budget, and any changes you need to discuss with your husband or wife first. And I would recommend for the first budget or for the first few budgets, when you make that budget, you and your husband or wife or you and your teddy bear, whoever that is, you should sign the budget. And if you spend outside of those budget categories, you need to get permission from your husband or wife or from your teddy bear to spend outside of that category. This is your binding word. And then, of course, over time, it doesn't need to be so strict like that. But you need to understand, hey, these are our categories that we are going to set. And so what does a sample budget look like? Well, right at the top, you write down your income from your work or your regular job. And then you can also, there's a space for other income, and you have your total income. This is 100% of your budget. Then, of course, you're going to list out some of your, let's call these overflow categories. So these are your tithes, 10%. Of course, we're going to give that to God first. We're going to do this before we spend anything else. We're going to invest. I would recommend 15% if you can. We're going to save. I would recommend 5%. This is money that we keep on hand for projects that require cash or require savings. If you got kids, we're going to give some money, maybe 5% to kids, college, investing for that. And maybe if you like, we can give some money for extra giving, 2.5% or 5% or more if you can. But this is money towards extra giving projects, maybe buying dinner for someone in need, or supporting our school, Tejas Asia in India, or maybe supporting the kids in Watoto, Africa, or needs, or typhoon victims, or earthquake victims as they come up. It's good to have some extra money on hand that we can use for giving. And so that's going to come to roughly 40% of our budget, give or take. Then we have our needs. These are things like housing. How much should you spend on rent or your mortgage? I would recommend no more than 25% if you can. If you're spending more than 25% on your housing, some of these other areas like college or savings or investing are going to suffer because maybe your house or your rent is more than it should be, proportionally is in terms of your income. Utilities, gas, water, these types of things, maybe about 10%, depends where you live. And food, of course, maybe that's going to be 10% of your budget. Now, you may say, food, 10% of my budget. That's not enough money. And it may not be if you have a family. But most people, you don't need to spend a lot of money on food if you are buying your food at a supermarket or at a grocery store. Most people need more money for food if they're eating out all the time. Now, that's one of the biggest areas you can look at. And so that's maybe going to be about 40%. So we're up to 85%. Then, of course, we've got eating out money. I don't know how much you eat out. I used to eat out a lot. And then I realized, hang on, if I took some of that money and we saved it or invested it, that's actually quite a lot of money. And so we stopped eating out as much and got a lot healthier as well, because now we can buy great food and we can make great dinner together and have some extras and drinks and things. And it's actually a better experience for our family as well. But of course, we still do eat out sometimes as well. And then miscellaneous, maybe 2.5%. There's some things. These are extra things. We can cut these in a tough time. That's going to be about 5% our budget. And then, of course, we've got things like life insurance. Maybe that's about 2.5%. We've got health insurance. Maybe that's another 5%. We got our pension. Maybe that's another 2.5%. So our total insurance is maybe going to be about 10% of our budget. And so all of that income minus our overflow, which is our giving and our needs and our wants and our insurances, all of that should equal 0. Now you may say, well, those percentages don't work for me. That's fine. This is just a rough guide. The main thing is that you write down your income at the top of the page, and then in order of priority, you write down your tithing and your giving and your saving and investing and housing and utilities and food and eating out and miscellaneous and insurance. And you write all of that down. If there's money left over, well, I would recommend put it back into savings or put it back into investing or put it back into giving. And if you've got a negative, and many people, when they do this, they don't realize it, but they're like, oh, that's why I never have any money, because I'm actually got a negative every month. If you've got a negative, you need to look at that and you need to make your budget work. Now, initially, maybe you can't invest 15%. Maybe you can't give extra giving at the moment. Maybe you need to wait until you move house or do something or increase your income with a side hustle. So this is not set in stone, but we do need to look at it. And if you've got a negative, then you've got a problem. And I'd really, of course, we're going to tithe all the time, no matter what. Tithing, it's a mandatory. We have to, not because God requires it, because we want to honor God. We want to put God number one. For me, this is a non-negotiable when I say that. And I want to encourage you to also have that as a non-negotiable in your life, putting God first. But investing and saving these things, I put those at the front end. Because as we put those at the front end, if we put them at the end, we never have enough money to save. We just say, I won't save anything this month. But if you do that, you'll find that every month, you'll never save anything because you didn't make it a priority. So put it at the start. It might hurt, but you're going to make everything else work. So put your tithing, put your giving, put your investing, put your kids' college, put all that at the start, then put your needs, and try and work your budget out from there. Of course, if you've got any questions with your budget, if you're doing this as part of our course or one of our Connect groups, talk with your coach and say, hey, can you help me make this work? And often someone else can look at our budget and say, hey, you're spending too much money. Usually it's on takeout food. Sometimes it's on other things like clothes or different things like that. But hey, let's make our budget work every month. So looking forward to hearing your stories about your budget meeting with your husband or wife. Sit down, or maybe with your teddy bear, write in if you've got a good story. But let's try it out this month. Step 1, get a plan for our money, budget, tell your money where to go, and don't wonder where it went. Well, have a great week, guys. And hope you enjoyed step 1 of financial freedom. And we'll see you next session for step 2 of financial freedom.
Hey, welcome back, guys. I hope that you guys absorbed a bunch of this stuff about financial freedom, and so good to learn about this. But if you don't know Jesus, hey, today you can know Jesus in your life. It's the best decision you will ever make, is to invite Jesus into your life. He loves you, wants to come into your life today. And I want to just pray for you right now if you want to receive Jesus. Okay, so let's pray together. Jesus, we thank you. We believe in you today. Come into our lives. We'll follow you. Amen. Amen. If you just prayed that prayer, just a simple prayer like that, I believe God will answer your prayer. We'd love to help you out. So definitely send us a message. I'm sure there's a local pastor where you are who would love to get in touch with you and just help you walk that journey with following Jesus. Now, we actually have a bunch of these studies, all of what we're talking about tonight. We actually have Blue Book studies, so you can jump onto the Lifehouse app, and in there is the Blue Book where we use in our small groups. There's studies in there on financial freedom. I think there's 6 or 7 studies. Jump on there, check it out. You can do that with your small group. And next week we're going to be back talking about the next subject. It's going to be powerful. So make sure you tune back in next week to be part of more financial freedom. Now, if you want to give, please jump onto mylifehouse.com/give. Links are below. Choose your campus. Be a part of supporting your local campus, your local church. It's a great thing to support your local church. And we're really praying God's blessing over your life as you do that. So links are below for that. Let's be faithful and give and build the house of God together. Have an amazing week, guys. We'll see you back here next week.